Sometimes the real story of a place isn't in the big headlines. It's more about the day-to-day stuff happening in its neighborhoods.
Exactly. And today we're diving into one of those Belsize in London. It's described, I think, in the source itself as a lovely area, lots of green space.
Yeah, sounds quite nice. And our way in, it's a YouTube video, Nigel Rumble in Belsize, from a channel called Belsize Eye.
Right. So think of it as a kind of street-level report, a snapshot of what's on people's minds there.
Absolutely. We're stepping away from the global picture for a moment. We really want to understand what matters to the folks living in Belsize, at least according to this video by Nigel Rumble.
It's a direct look at community concerns.
It is. And two things jump out almost immediately. First, policing specifically, seeing local police around, or maybe not seeing them.
Right, the visibility aspect. And the second, something probably very familiar to many people, bin collections.
Ah, the bins. Okay, let's start with the policing then. What's the core issue being raised?
Well, it seems to come directly from residents. They feel their local officers are stretched thin. The phrase used is pushed everywhere, dealing with big events elsewhere in London.
Meaning their own local streets feel a bit neglected, under-patrolled?
That seems to be the feeling, yeah. And Rumble himself points out that the actual number of police assigned locally isn't very large to begin with.
And he has some background here, doesn't he? He's not just an observer.
No, not at all. He mentions being involved in local policing for, I think, around 20 years.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and he even served as a deputy chair, specifically for Belsize policing matters.
So he's been on the inside, so to speak, trying to get things done.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
He talks about actively, pushing for that police presence on the streets, holding the police accountable, urging them to be more visible.
Right. And let's dig into that a bit. Why is visible policing so important here?
He calls it a visual deterrent. It's this idea that seeing police officers around doesn't just help after a crime happens.
It stops some things from happening in the first place.
Exactly. And perhaps just as importantly, it makes residents feel safer, more secure in their own neighborhood.
That makes sense. It's that feeling of security, not just the statistics.
Absolutely. It taps into, a basic expectation people have that their local area feels safe.
Yeah.
And when that visible presence seems to drop off, well, it's understandable that concern might rise.
Okay. So that's the policing side. Now, let's pivot to the perhaps less dramatic, but still very real issue of bin collections.
Yes. He describes this as a paternal problem, which is quite a phrase, isn't it? Suggests it's a widespread, recurring headache.
Like something many communities grapple with. And what does it look like on the ground in Belsize, according to the video?
Well, he paints a picture of lots of garbage bags piling up, says it's a common sight, and sometimes gets much, much worse.
Oh, not ideal.
Not ideal at all. It's a very sort of tangible sign of whether basic services are working smoothly.
Does he say they never get collected?
Oh, no, he acknowledges they will be, eventually. But he mentions waits, sometimes a week, maybe even 2 weeks. He puts it down to different cycling processes.
Cycling processes. Whatever that means, it sounds like a delay and a source of frustration.
Definitely sounds like frustration. And this is where he connects it to local governance.
Oh, okay. How so?
He brings up Camden Council, says they increase the council tax always every year to the maximum allowed.
Right. So taxes going up consistently.
Yes. And then he poses the question, basically, are we getting value for this money? Is the service quality keeping pace with these maximum tax hikes, especially compared to, say, other councils?
It's that classic taxpayer question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What am I getting for my money?
Precisely. And he then offers a broader observation based on his experience.
Which is?
He suggests, and this is clearly his perspective, that he's often seen labor-controlled councils charging the most, but delivering, in his view, the worst service.
Okay. And he contrasts that with?
He contrasts it with what he sees as more efficiency in conservative-controlled councils. He actually cites Westminster as an example.
Got it. So, important to note, that's his viewpoint.
Right.
Based on his local experience and observations.
Absolutely. It's one person's take, informed by years of being involved locally, but it does highlight how these very practical, everyday issues, police on the beat, bins getting collected, become benchmarks for how people judge their local government.
And he stresses these aren't new problems either.
No, he says they're ongoing things, issues he knows well as a resident there. It's the reality for people living in Belsize.
Okay. Now, there was also a little bit about technology tucked in there. Sounded quite interesting.
Yeah, a bit of a shift. He mentions he's planning to experiment with some new Google AI tools, specifically something called Notebook LM.
Notebook LM. What's he planning to do with it?
He talks about maybe creating a sort of virtual interview with himself using it, and even extracting a podcast, like this one, directly from the video content.
Wow, okay. That sounds
Right.
advanced.
It does. He's apparently been a beta tester for it, calls the software amazing. He does hedge a bit, says it'll likely be quite expensive.
But potentially very powerful.
Yeah, he thinks it could be really, really, really good.
Yeah.
It's definitely a glimpse into how technology might change content creation and analysis.
He sees it as an experiment, though, a case study tool.
Exactly. He's clearly interested in the tech side, but he loops it back. He makes it clear that the real focus remains the problems on the ground in Belsize, the policing, the bins.
So the tech is a potential tool to discuss the issues, not a solution in itself.
That's the impression. The core challenges for the residents are still those practical local service issues.
Right. So as we kind of pull this together, this deep dive into Belsize via Nigel Rumble's video.
Yeah.
What are the main takeaways for you?
Well, I'd say two clear things. First, there's a definite concern among residents, or at least reported by Rumble, about the lack of visible local policing, a feeling that resources are maybe elsewhere.
And second,
Second, real dissatisfaction with bin collections, especially when they see their council tax going up consistently, seemingly to the maximum allowed. It raises that value for money question quite sharply.
yeah, it really brings home how much these, fundamental local services matter in people's everyday lives. It's not abstract politics. It's about feeling safe and having your rubbish collected efficiently.
Absolutely. And thinking a bit wider, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How are these kinds of challenges, resource allocation in big cities, the communication between councils and residents, the link between taxes and service quality, how are these playing out elsewhere?
It's a good point. What are the Belsize issues, so to speak, in your own community? How are local authorities responding where you live?
Definitely something worth reflecting on. These hyper-local stories often tell us a lot about the bigger picture.